Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Roundtable podcast, the show where we discuss Elden Ring PvP, the issues, and what can be done to address them. For this month's topic, we will be talking about the competitive duel meta. And my three guests for this month, I have three players from the competitive ladder on Elden Ring PvP Discord. They've all played in competitive tournaments before and have actually won the top three places in these previous tournaments. So first, we have inservins. Inservins, say hello, introduce yourself.
Yo, what's up, everyone? I'm inservins, and I compete in tournaments, and I'm currently number one in the ladder PvP Discord.
Next up, we have Ross Skills, the best Moonveil user. Say hello, Ross.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's _Rask1LLS back, and just a competitive ladder player competing in some of the few tournaments that were held by the Den. Placed top three in two recent ones. Just wanted to say hello.
And last but not least, we have Snapcaster. Snap, what's up?
Hey, it's me, Snapcaster D. Been competing in a few tournaments. Really enjoy Elden Ring, and just want to say hi to everyone.
All right. So you three, thank you so much for coming onto the show. It is an honor. And again, this month's topic, we are going to be talking about the competitive meta. So we're going to be talking about the last Elden Ring patch, what that has done for the game. We're going to be talking about what we would like FromSoft to do to make the dueling meta better. So we're going to be going into a little bit of balance topics. We'll also be talking about Elden Ring PvP ladder itself, what it's like to play on ladder, what it's like to play in the tournaments, and how that can be improved from my three guests' perspective. So starting right off, we're gonna jump into Elden Ring patch 1.06 first. So what we were gonna discuss is just some of the changes that came with the patch, stuff like light rolls and some of the problematic stuff that got patched out. So I'll start by giving my opinion first. This patch gives me a lot of hope for the future because it tells me that FromSoft, they do care about PvP and they are listening. So a lot of the things that were very problematic with invasions in the past, stuff like Bloodhound Steppe, stuff like Rivers of Blood, Stars of Ruin, all of that got patched and is much weaker now. So invasions, when you're actually fighting against, three people, it's actually a lot more tolerable. It's a lot more balanced. They also added Wex Dust, which is a feature that lets you invade any area from any location. That was something that used to be a mod for previous games. Now it's an official feature in Elden Ring, and it was such a surprise because no one really saw it coming. And it gives me hope that FromSoft may make bigger PvP changes down the line too, like more players in world, increase the player cap from 4 to 6. So overall, I'm very positive about this patch. Some of the other changes that they added was they nerfed glintstone pebble, which was a actual ward that was banned in ladder before because of the high damage to hit stun. Cypherpoda got buffed. So just all around really good changes. And I'm going to go to my guests now to get their opinion on the patch, starting with inservins. Inservins, give your thoughts on 1.06.
Exactly what you said. I'm actually super surprised by what they did with the current patch with light roll. Was not expecting that feature at all. And the Wex Dust, of course, we've seen it in previous games, but I'm glad because invading and finding a bunch of dead areas and constantly going through the map can be a bit tedious and annoying after a while. So definitely glad that's a new change that all of us are experiencing, and I have hope for this game now because after 1.05, it's seeing barely any PvP. I don't think any actually PvP nerfs or bugs. It just feels good now seeing that From is actually doing something.
And Rascal, your thoughts?
Hey, so pretty much agree with both of what you guys said. With the first couple patches in the beginning of the lifespan of the game, they actually didn't really do much, if not made things worse. And so with this new patch, I have hope that they are listening. They are listening to the PvP community, even though we're the smaller majority of the players that play Elden Ring. They are listening. Invasions are back to life. I mean, I think we can all agree before patch, invasions were quite dead. Now, I can actually enjoy invasions without, waiting around for long amounts of time. They're definitely moving in the right direction now with this patch. PvP is a lot more enjoyable. A lot of the stronger stuff that dominated the meta is now nerfed. Light roll is very interesting now. You do have to have quite a bit of endurance to actually pull off a light roll. So I think it's fairly balanced for now. We'll see how things go. I don't know. From what I've been hearing from some players, it's kind of that BHS 2.0,
Hmm.
but we'll see. I haven't really had too much experience with it, but definitely get around to testing it a bit more to see how it works out. But overall, just I'm very happy and pleased with this new patch. Things are definitely going in the right direction, and we can only hope for better for more to come and the more future patches.
Snapcaster, go.
I think the patch was great overall. I'm really happy they nerfed Bloodhound Step. I think that was a big issue in both invasions and duels. People could escape and run away forever, and it traveled faster than your character could chase them down or roll catch them. Nerfing the distance and the iframes seemed to help a lot. Also, things like glintstone, pebble, high damage things, as you guys said before, are the meta really balanced out a lot, and I think they're like we're going in the right direction. They're starting to appease to everyone, both invasions, duels. I think we have a lot of hope, and I think it's a great patch to game.
Okay. I would like to talk specifically about light roll and the repercussions that may have in the game moving forward. So light roll isn't something that we really had before in Elden Ring. Before it was just heavy roll and medium roll, and in the last patch they added a new light roll for light equip load. And some players in the community, most notably Cielovsky, who is a competitive PC player, he's done some videos on it, and he's noted how with light roll, you're able to dodge things that you weren't able to dodge before. Things like
Right.
Storm Stomp,
Yeah.
Flame Strike, Moog's Spear Weapon Art. Some of the most problematic things in the meta are now dodgeable thanks to light roll. So in a way, that's a good thing because those weapons, like, they needed a counter, they needed something to balance them out, and light roll basically does that. But at the same time, light roll is so good that it's very hard to roll catch people. Like, Elden Ring PvP is all about catching your opponent on their roll, roll catching, roll punishing, and with light roll, it basically trivializes that. It's so good that it's almost impossible to do that. So it's being compared to like the old Bloodhound Step. So I wanted to ask you guys, since you guys do play in competitive and you do play on the ladder, like how has light rolling affected the game, and what are your thoughts on it and how it's going to affect the game going forward? So inservins, we'll start with you.
Honestly, I was messing around with Steele's recent tourney build with his light roll power stance spears, and against high latency, it is very hard to catch anyone. I noticed I was going against people like Dreamer, Brom, Brandel. It was extremely hard for them to catch me at all, especially if they were using, like, Dreamer uses Ug's poke. He barely could catch me at all, and it was just weird seeing, how fast he can actually roll around the map and avoid, things that would be normally extremely difficult, like, vortexing and all that. So I have a feeling that it could be a problem if, mainly against, high lat, but I haven't really tested against, like, someone that's, NA West like me. So right now it could be a hit or miss, in my opinion. So let's say maybe after everyone gets settled and starts, experiencing how it actually is, we can see how it would be in, competitive PvP.
Mm-hmm. So it's basically it's a little too early to say right now since the patch just came out. Okay,
I think it is right now.
I understand. Rascals, how about you?
Um, like Inservin said, I do think it's highly dependent on latency. He did mention that he hasn't fought people from the same region, so latency does play a big role. And how being able to roll catch your opponent or even hit them. Uh, I've had very little experience with it. It doesn't seem that big of a different issue, but with high latency, you know you can obviously start
Hmm.
coming across these issues where you have a very hard time trying to catch your opponent. Um, I think it does kind of lower the skill gap a little bit if you know you are light rolling. You have a bigger window to roll, or you could even roll too early. And since the light roll is farther than the normal medium roll, you could end up getting away where if you're a medium rolling, you would most likely get caught. But like Servant said, it's a little bit too early to tell. You know, as the players get used to light rolling being in the meta, you know, they will become accustomed to it and maybe be able to work around it, find its own counters. So time will tell, and we'll see where things go.
Hmm. Hmm. So it like how good it is and how broken it could be. It could be dependent on region. So in cross regional events and cross regional PvP, we could see some issues with it. Like already now with medium rolls in cross
Hmm.
regional PvP, it can be very hard to roll catch people, and light rolling may exacerbate that. So we'll just have to wait and
Right.
see how that plays out.
Yeah. Exactly.
Snapcaster, your thoughts?
Okay, so I agree with a lot of your guys' points. I tested out Light Roll a lot on like Moonveil builds, different setups and stuff, and I noticed although it's on latency makes it a lot worse, but on good latency, certain things have good counters against it. I mean, you can use dual spears, which is legal on ladder now, and that does a very good time at chasing down light roll. When they roll, you can do a run attack and catch the roll.
Hmm.
As well as things like what's it called, Moonveil Weapon R2 can catch the light roll. There's a few
Yes.
counters I'm starting to discover, but yeah, against Ultra Great Sword, Power Stance, Great Spears, it kind of negates these builds. You roll halfway across the map and they have no chance of hitting you. I mean,
Hmm.
Hmm.
so yeah,
Yes.
we'll see how it develops there, but I'm not too sure. Yeah, it seems okay. I'm not convinced that's really good yet.
Hmm. So, like in competitive meta, one of the tiers that increases your equip load, that's banned. So to achieve light
Yeah,
rolling in competitive, you really have to sacrifice your armor and your poise to achieve it.
Yes.
We did see a
Yep.
yeah.
player in the last PC tournament yesterday. He came in with a light roll build to really show off the power of light rolls, and that is Stilovsky. He came in with a twin spear build. In his first match, he did pretty well. In his second match, he did lose to Miasma, who I believe at the time he was either using a colossal or he was using a heavy thrusting sword. I can't remember exactly, but to me, like what his matches showed was as good as light rolling is. Poise is still better in the end. Like heavy
Yeah.
armor poise is better to have because you have more room to make mistakes. For light rolling to be effective, you still have to have perfect timing, and you still got to be like on your mental game to really make it function. You have to be perfect with light rolls, especially when you have less defense. So that's kind of the trade-off that you have to make. Did you guys catch Stilovsky's tournament matches yesterday?
I did
I did
personally.
not.
Who
I
said he did?
didn't.
Inservins.
Inservins?
Yeah, I was watching. Yeah, the first, the couple sets he did have. The first one really showed how powerful it was. I'm trying to remember who it was exactly or what they were using, but I know during that second set he had with Miasma, he was using Stitcher, and
Ah.
I
Oh
noticed
yeah.
that anytime he was doing any running L1s with power stance spear, he could easily jump over and do over 1,000 damage with spear and claw talisman since they're currently still
Mm.
usable in the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was completely shutting down his build. So it
Mm-hmm.
was. I thought I'd see a longer run from him because of how powerful it was in that first set he had. But I think it still has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I think.
It,
Yeah.
I think it's sure that it's still really player dependent. I feel like Stilovsky, he wasn't really on his mental game. Like I felt like he made a lot of user errors. In
Yeah,
his match against Miasma because he played a lot better in his first match that tournament. Um, but with what I said before, with poise builds and high poise, you're kind of allowed to make mistakes, whereas light rolls you're not allowed to. So I think that is a good trade off, at least in the competitive meta when it comes to light rolls. Whether it's overall good for the game in the long run and if it made the game better, it's too early to say because that patch it did come
Yeah.
out a week ago, about a week ago.
A week and a half, or
A week and a half,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's still too early to say whether light roll was a good addition to the game. We'll just have to wait and see. Go ahead.
there's something that's interesting with light roll is you can use the tier, the opaline. One sec, opaline hard tier. I think it gives you more defense. In the recent patch, I believe they added physical to the overall percent buff of like how much you get 10% defense on every stat kind of thing. So maybe you could use that with light roll to compensate for the defense loss. It's just an idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true. That tier isn't banned. Yeah.
You might be able to get like 30 absorb on light roll or something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's like we said. It's so early to say.
Yeah.
But also, this is kind of similar to the light roll topic. Quickstep. Quickstep did receive some changes in the last patch. So just looking at the patch notes right now, what does it say? Light roll, or not light roll. Quickstep. They didn't nerf it. So if you use it continuously, the effectiveness of it is reduced. But
Yeah.
it does say increase travel distance while on equip load. So have you guys had a chance to test that out? Does it basically make it better than the last patch? Does it travel further? Does it make it better when used continuously? Inservins, I'll start with you.
Right now I haven't, since it's mainly banned on what's viable with it, like thrusting swords like Clayton Raw, of course, odds. So I haven't tested it because of how much it's banned on different setups.
Mm-hmm.
So I can say exactly what it does or how it works exactly with the latest patch.
Okay, that's fair. Snapcaster, how about you?
I haven't tested it all with Quickstep yet. I don't use it much. Like Inservin said, it's not really it's not usable right now on the ladder rules.
Mm-hmm. Rascals, how about you? Did you get a chance to test it out?
I didn't get a chance to test it out myself, but I have fought a few people that have used Quickstep. It's pretty much it's pretty overall a good nerf to Quickstep. You can't just literally just sit there and spam it and just hope not to get hit, because if you keep repeatedly using it, it gets less and less effective. So kind of similar to the BHS Bloodhound Step nerf, where every time you use it or if you keep spamming it, it gets less and less effective, which is great because uh, iframes are kind of just nuts in this game. So I haven't personally tested it myself, but fighting players that use it and continuously spam it, it's a lot more easy to fight because they can't just spam it over and over again.
Mm-hmm. So Quickstep is something that is regulated in the competitive meta. You can't use it on certain setups. Do you think,
Right.
from what you've seen so far, it should be unbanned on all those setups, or should it stay banned?
Right now, I think it's fine staying banned. Especially like when you use stuff like two stock. It's Quickstep is
Yeah. Oh my
insanely
god.
good on it. So
Mm-hmm.
even with the nerfs, I think it still pretty much deserves a ban because the higher skill players, they just don't sit there and spam Quickstep. They'll use it once or twice to get out of a sticky situation and move on from there and rely on rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I guess it could be too early to say, and just like with
Right.
light rolling, we'll have
It's
to
just
see.
one of those situations where we have to see how things play out
Mm-hmm.
and move on forward to discuss future bans
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
unbans.
So I guess there's no reason to really talk about Bloodhound Step then, since the same principle
Yeah.
would apply.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same
Yeah.
thing. And then Bloodhound Step is one of those Ashes of War that's just banned universally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And forget it on latency. Any of these things on latency is insane.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's something where, like, even after the nerfs in a competitive setting, it's still going to be very problematic just being able to have more iframes, and that's something that they've really tried to reduce in competitive ladder, is reduce how many iframes you can have. That's why they banned the windy tier, which increases your iframes on rolls, even though
Yep.
it decreases your defense. They thought that the increase in iframes is just too good. Especially in a game like this where you can roll many times before you run out of stamina. It's not like Dark Souls
Right.
1 where you can roll 4 times and run out. In this game, you can roll
Right.
many times before running out of stamina. And even when you do run out of stamina, you get it back pretty quickly in Elden Ring.
Right.
Moving on with the patch, let's talk about some of the other things that got changed. So, like glintstone pebble, inservins. What are your thoughts on glintstone pebble after its nerf?
I'm really glad that got a nerf because honestly, getting that stun, that guaranteed two hit combo, was insanely annoying, especially against a high intelligence build. Getting hit for over 1,000 damage, could be 1,500,
Hmm.
basically one shotted by it, is completely busted in my opinion. So I'm glad they actually made it ladder legal because it's a good throw off. If they build, you can have phalanx, use that, and then you can swap to a glintstone pebble weapon. So it's definitely, and I really, you know, I've been using it a bit, so I actually like that change a lot. And I'm glad that they added more distance with it since you can't get that two hit guarantee unless you fully stun them. So I'm glad that actually got a change.
Hmm. Do you feel like it's balanced overall, or do you think it could use some improvements?
I honestly think it's balanced right now.
Hmm.
How it is, yeah.
So it doesn't need to be touched anymore.
No, I think it's perfect right now.
Okay, okay. Rascals, how about you?
Pretty much agreed with what his servant said. Before patch, getting hit with that thing, you're anywhere near low health, 50%, you're getting one shotted. It didn't really take a lot of skill, in my opinion, to land. With the current patch, the stun is not guaranteed. It does significantly amount less damage. So in the current rule set, I don't think it deserves to be touched. Um, it's pretty balanced overall.
Hmm. And Snapcaster, what are your thoughts?
So I think before, like the other guy said, it was way problematic. Someone could put on a red feathered branchstone and kind of just one shot you or very close to it. With the new increase, with the new patch, the distance is good. So far, in my experience, I haven't seen anybody use it really well or to the point I was really worried about it. I don't think it needs a ban, that's for sure. But I'm not so sure it's good or bad. It's kind of maybe a lot, maybe not playable in my opinion, but maybe it can be used in some way. I'm not sure. But yeah, definitely the patch toned it down a lot.
Hmm. Hmm. Overall, from my opinion, I kind of agree with what you guys say. I mean, I saw it in action by Stilovsky, and yeah, it does. It shoots a lot further, and that really makes up for the lack of damage. The damage is still decent; does about 300 damage or more on an optimized intelligence build, and it doesn't have the hit stun that it had before. So you're not guaranteed to get like 600 damage or more on a single actual war use, and I think that's really good. So I agree with what Inservant said. I think it's pretty much balanced now, and it doesn't need to be touched anymore. And I'm happy that it's now ladder legal because it does. Inject some more variety into the number of actual wars you see in competitive ladder. Moving on, we're going to talk about blood. No, sorry, rivers of blood. So this is something that wasn't banned in ladder, but it was seen as a problematic weapon. We saw a snapcaster using it in his, or actually no, did we see? Yeah, yes, we saw snapcaster
Yeah,
using it in the warm up tournament. We see it a
I love
lot in
them.
invasions. So like after the patch reduced its bleed speed. It reduced its overall damage. I want to ask you guys if you think if it's like too weak now, was the patch too much? Should they touch it again, or is it perfect the way it is now? So Snapcaster, I'll start with you.
I think I love that weapon personally. I think it was so like now it's in my opinion it's not usable. I haven't had any luck with it. They nerfed I guess the range and the bleed buildup. So I was doing like half bleed even without the guy without people using resistance effects. Before was it problematic? I think it was, but a lot of people don't realize you can stack bleed resistances through rings or status tiers like the flasks. So when people stack like status tier and ring, even against the old rivers of blood, I believe Rascals used that against you a few times. Like it kind of negated the effect of it. In invasions, it was definitely problematic, but I mean now I see it kind of as a not useless, but it's just not really viable in my experience anymore.
Mm-hmm. Have you done any PVE with it? Do you think it's viable in that context?
I haven't done PV in forever. So, no,
Okay.
so I don't know. Yeah.
All right. We'll move on to inservins. What are your thoughts on Rivers of Blood now? Before and after.
I would have to agree with Snap. I think right now it's not usable in a duel, but still, before the patch, it was extremely problematic in invasions, especially in 1v2s, 1v3s. Constantly
Yeah.
seeing that every other invasion was always demoting. I would say that was probably one of the main reasons why I stopped doing invasions altogether. Just constantly seeing that, sometimes they'll have a mode spear paired with it. So it was just an extremely annoying weapon. Getting that proc off and you're stunned, getting that stun was completely annoying because you just get hit by everything they had against you. So I'm glad they actually, did something with it. So yeah, in a duel matchup, with a 1v1 scenario, I would say before it wasn't nearly as bad since you could stack, a bunch of bleed resistance. And so I think right now I'm glad it's where it's at in its current position.
Okay. And Rascals, your thoughts on Rivers of Blood before and now?
Yeah, before patch, I honestly didn't really see a problem with Rivers of Blood. You could, like they both said, you could stack bleed. You could use the speckled hard tier, which boosts all resistance. You could use the status talisman, which just the status talisman is just alone enough to fight it. If you're on point with your rolls, you can pretty easily roll it. It wasn't an unreactable weapon, but I think it got the ban because, like Inservin was saying, you go into invasions, everyone uses Rivers of Blood, everyone's using it. When there's multiple people using it, that's when you start seeing the issue of getting bled really quick or just getting your health deleted. But honestly, in duels, I never really seen an issue with it. I fought people like Snapcaster, Depressed Hollow, which were very competent Rivers of Blood users. And it's honestly it's just a knowledge check when you come across it. It's like if you don't have that bleed resistance ready with your status talisman or being able to switch to your speckle hard tier, it's a knowledge check and you will get bled pretty quick and you will have that health deleted. So you just got to be ready for it. But in all honesty, I didn't see an issue with it in the dual setting in the competitive scene.
But you did see an issue with it in Invasions.
Yes. Yes.
And have you had any opportunities to play with it in PvE and its effectiveness in that?
That I have not. I haven't done PvE in forever. And when I did play, I didn't use Rivers of Blood.
Okay. As for my personal thoughts on it, I agree with Rascals. In a dual setting before, it was really just a knowledge check, and despite how strong it is, if you have your bleed resistance ready, it's not that big of an issue. It was possible to jump over that Ash of War. If you had a running head start, you can jump over the first 2 slashes of that Ash of War and get your opponent in the back. In an invasion setting, it was more problematic, specifically when it was like 2v1 or 3v1. Even if you have bleed resistance stacked, you can still get bled pretty quickly, and just fighting it was annoying. But it wasn't insurmountable. In PvE, really good. Very easy to bleed enemies.
Right.
So, my goal with the patch, if I was doing the patch, I would want to keep it effective for PvE while nerfing the effectiveness of it against players, specifically with invasions.
Right.
Now, for how it is now, is basically no issue. In duels, forget it. You can't win with
Yeah.
it in duels.
Yeah, I don't. I
no
think
way.
they killed it in duels.
Yep.
It's not
Yeah.
viable no more.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then even in an invasion context, it's not that good. It's really like I was taking a lot of Rivers of Blood hits in invasions, and it just was not bleeding me anywhere close to how it was in the last patch. So I didn't get a chance to really test it out in PvE as well. I still want it to be okay in PvE, not as good because it's a weapon that did trivialize PvE a lot. So you don't want that either. But I do feel for the PvE guys who felt like this patch really ruined that weapon. And, I don't like it when FromSoft, they over nerf something and they make that weapon unviable in every context. Like, I think it needs to be viable in something, So whether that's PvP or PvE. So whether it should be touched up again, maybe yes. How they should do it, I'm not sure. Because I haven't done enough tests to really say like what needs to be improved, if it does need improvements, whether it's the bleed buildup or the base damage. But you know what? Just like with Quickstep, maybe it's just too early to say. We should keep an eye on it, keep playing with it, and just see how it performs as the months roll by. And if it does need to be improved, we can have that conversation later. Now, moving on, I would like to discuss our wish list for the dual meta specifically. So, the last patch 1.06, it did a lot to improve the invasion meta. It pretty much addressed all the gripes that people had with invasions, the Bloodhound Step, the Rivers of Blood, the Stars of Ruin. But the duelist meta is still pretty much the same as it was uh, with last patch and the patch before. And a lot of players are getting burnt out on duels. They're kind of losing faith in duels. They want to see stuff like Storm Stomp get addressed, Flame Strike, Crouch Poke, Colossal Swords. They also want to see hosts be able to pull in 3 red phantoms at a time. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts on what should be added specifically for duels. So inservins, we're going to start with you. What would you like to see with this next patch?
Say hopefully a nerf to Raptors recovery time, because I think instantly popping that, especially last second, and getting that Raptors proc is a bit insane, to be honest, because you can just get out of anything like an Uggs poke if you accidentally roll too early. It definitely trivialize being able to roll, because you can just pop that instantly. Get that, especially paired with HTS. You can have R2 and R1. Get that 2-hit combo that comes with it, and hopefully they do something with it, because I have a feeling as more people start using it, it's definitely going to be a problem. I think right now people mainly PC. I notice barely anyone uses that, even though it's extremely strong. Because I think once the ladder starts banning Flaming Strike and Storm Stomp, I think you'll definitely see a lot more people using Raptors. So I definitely like to see a nerf or any sort of balance changes to Raptors.
Nerf in what way? Like just recovery time?
I would say recovery time. Maybe not instantly using it. Some sort of any sort of way not using that as your only escape plan instead of just rolling.
So how about if it was the recovery time was nerfed on a whiffed use? So like you don't take like no weapon goes through your body like during the animation. Like you think that'd be good enough as like only on whip and not in general?
Yeah, I think that could work.
Okay. Ross and Snap, Ross, what's your thoughts on what Inservin said about Raptor of the Mist?
I do think it's easily usable. Maybe a slight delay, and when you use Raptors, it's not instant instability frames, because like he said, when you're using it with things like HTS, which it's mostly dominantly used on, is heavy thrusting sword. After the jump, you could either R2, R1. You can get an insane combo. Hits upwards of like 1.4 thousand if you're using claw and spear talisman. But yeah, there might need some rework to Raptors of the Mist, but as of now, it's probably fine leaving it where it's at. I'm not sure if it honestly deserves that, but I do see the problems. I fight it quite often, especially mainly in Moonveil. People that use HTS, that's usually what they use, because they could just uh, instability frame my Moonveil weapon art. But yeah, it might need a slight nerf.
Okay, so you're more you're pretty neutral on it.
Yeah, like I just, if it didn't get nerfed, I wouldn't be bothered too much.
Okay, and Snap, what about you?
I think it's really strong, and I have a lot of trouble versus it, especially with things like recovery cancels, which is interesting on these weapons, on these Ashes of War. You can, let's say, do a thrusting sword attack, and someone comes to punish your attack, and you can pop Raptors and just jump out and escape their punish and escape any chance they have of the whiff punish game. I don't know if it's completely broken, or it's definitely really intense, really bad on lat. Like it's really good. It's really powerful on latency as well. I'm not quite sure, but I think it might need some rework. Yeah, it's very hard to fight.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and at least in my opinion, from what I witness in competitive events and watching these tournaments, in an offensive context, it's not bad at all because it doesn't have a lot of forward momentum. You can't always get a jump attack with it because all someone has to do is just bait it out and then take a step back. In a defensive context and just using it only to avoid attacks, I understand what you guys are saying because it's kind of low cost and it's low commitment, so it's very easy to just use over and over again and always be able to avoid attacks. So maybe they could do what inservins said and reduce recovery at least on whiff. So that way it's easier to catch on a missed use, or maybe they can increase the FP cost. But also, like Ras said, whether they do or don't, it doesn't really matter to me. I think it's pretty low priority, all things considered, on the adjusting list. It's not one of the worst offenders, and I think the game will be all right if it never gets touched ever. So in servants, I'm gonna go back to you. What are some other things you'd like to see in a patch 1.07?
I would say probably, hopefully, a nerf. I don't know how to really say this, but I would say hopefully they do something with the power stance in general. Because I think, of course, spears, sometimes straight swords. It just, I think they're just way too powerful. I think power stance in general is extremely powerful. So I don't know how to really say it, but I think right now, with how the game is, just whipping out power stance spears just makes the game extremely easy. So there's not really much skill or thought that goes into it. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, if they do something like, I don't know, probably, I don't know how else to say it, but
Well, what about damage? Do you
like,
think? Because in my opinion, the problem is the damage, and power stancing is so good that there's like no incentive to use a one-handed, a single weapon with two hands. Like there's no reason to use the two-handed moveset of a weapon because power stancing is so much better. So I think what they could do, in my opinion, is to reduce the overall damage of power stancing, reduce the status buildup of power stancing, and increase the poise break of two-handed weapons. I think that would decrease the incentive to use power stance while still keeping it good and increase the incentive to use a two-handed weapon. How do you feel about that?
yeah, I think that would definitely work. Definitely see
Mm-hmm.
a balance change with power stance in general would be nice.
Okay. And Rascals, your thoughts?
Like you said, I pretty much agree with what Knight said. I think maybe a damage nerf to when you power stance weapons, because it doesn't exactly do double the damage when you power stance them, but it does pretty darn close. So I think a nerf to the damage and maybe a increase in poise damage from two handing a weapon, which is a single weapon, to increase give you more of a reason to use a two-handed weapon. And then, like you said earlier, that most of the patches have been mostly focused around invasion. And I know KH Knight and Snapcaster played Dark Souls 3, but I mean, I think we can all agree that bringing raising the cap of the players in the world will pretty much spicing up the dual meta at like main academy gate and give us a reason to play a little bit more because I mean fight clubs are great, but honestly I don't know if it's possible or will happen
Mm-hmm.
because the game's available on last gen consoles and I personally don't think that the last gen consoles can sustain a larger
Mm-hmm.
player cap in the world.
Mm-hmm. I would like to talk about that a little bit more, but before we do, I just want to get Snapcaster's opinion on power stancing. Snapcaster, go.
Yeah, I think they would have to really help it be more balanced. They would have to nerf the poise damage on certain things, or increase the poise damage on two hand, like you guys were saying. Like I totally agree. I don't have much more to add, but that's about where I stand as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then going back to what Ras said, so the player cap for invasions and duels in Elden Ring. The game is multi-platform. It is on next gen and last gen consoles. Ras mentioned that the game probably can't handle it more than 4 players in last gen in the open world, and maybe that is the case. But we can't really say for sure. We don't have an official reason as to why that is. If they can do it, that'd be great. If they can do it for a specific platform like PC, since PC doesn't have crossplay and it's probably never going to have crossplay, maybe they could just increase it for that so that platform can have it. Maybe they can do it for just PS5, but maybe they won't
Yeah.
want to like alienate the player base like that. Um, I think what they could do, and the easiest thing they could do to help out the dual meta specifically, is to at the very least allow more than 2 reds in the world at once, or 2 duelists in the world at once. If we can summon up to 3 reds, 3 duelists, I think that will go a long way in improving fight clubs and hosting tournaments. So we don't have any disagreements about that specifically, right?
No.
No, no.
Okay, okay. Um,
I,
and then like for increasing the player cap, like Snapcaster, what are your thoughts on that? Go ahead.
so I think they should definitely, they have to increase it. But like you guys said, the cross-platform is a big issue. Another way they could make the duelists more, what's it called? Like make it more inviting for duelists is getting the red finger and getting all these things you need to duel or to do PvP in general. You got to find the white mask guy. Um, it's a whole issue. There's no explanation on how to really duel or how to really get involved in the PvP. So a lot of these players who just mostly do PvE don't end up going to find the Mask Vari or do his quest line with Mog, or understand it like that. Also, the consumable item is a bit weird. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think they can fix a few things like this, and at the same time, about raising the player base, I don't know how that would work. Maybe gear it towards the more new gens, and people have to adapt. Or I don't know how that. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
no,
my thoughts.
it's hard just because like at least with PlayStation, you they basically be making separate servers, I guess, if they were to do that for
Yeah,
just
that's a
PlayStation 5 alone. And I guess because PlayStation 5s are so hard to get, they don't want to alienate that player base. There's probably more players on PS4 than there are for PS5. We're gonna move on to another topic within the wish list. Colossal swords, specifically crouch poke. So this is something that's been very problematic in the meta since the very beginning because you can't parry it. You can buffer it with wave dashing, which is something you couldn't do in Dark Souls 3. You can also do jump attacks. You can also do crouch canceling to make the pokes come out faster. Again, you couldn't do that in the previous games because there was no crouching. So, how do you guys think they should go about balancing crouch pokes? Snap, we'll start with you.
They need I think crouch pokes. I feel like they need more recovery time. You can block and then poke right after. It's just sometimes you do it so fast that the player doesn't have time to roll. If you do two in a row and he doesn't roll, if you do two in a row and he expect if you do one and he expects you to do it again right after, like he expects you to follow him and he rolls, he can get roll caught. But if he doesn't, he gets double poked at the speed that you're able to do it at. So I think it's a big issue. They have to give it more recovery or more reason to be punished, like more able to be punished. Maybe also nerf the damage in general. I mean, it's like in Dark Souls 3, there's with the weapon Murky Hindsight, which was a weapon that was able to roll catch on reaction. So when the person rolled, you're able to poke them as they roll. And I believe the Ultra Greats are similar in that aspect. Big
Mhm.
issue.
So, even if they add more recovery, wouldn't that be negated by the crouch canceling tech?
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah. So, what if
Ugh.
they just remove that attack from the crouch or the rolling it, like change the rolling attack completely and maybe add that poke onto a different button on the
I don't.
weapon? Like,
I don't.
or what they could do is just give crouch attacks its own animation instead of using rolling attacks. I think that would be the best way to go about it.
Like you can't roll and you have to crouch. Only to do that move is crouch and not roll.
No. I mean, like how the rolling attack and the crouch attack is the same poke. So maybe
Yeah,
give crouch animations its own attack instead of just recycle
yeah.
the rolling attack.
I would love that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Rascals, how about you?
Um, yeah, Uggs poke is one of those things that is just it's completely dominates literally most of all the ladder setups. If we're talking ladder rules, I like what you were saying about possibly giving crouch attacks a different animation for the attack. That's very interesting. If the player is wave dashing correctly and using poke cancels, it is extremely hard to reaction roll. It's um, probably one of the hardest things to roll in the game. Uh, but I think a proper nerf to it would be maybe reducing the poise damage it does, because no matter what armor you have, it does 133 plus poise damage. So maybe being able to tank one hit, or two hits might see some builds rise up. But as for the most part, it's just one of those things that just completely dominates the meta.
Mm-hmm. Like
yeah.
even if you could tank a hit, like the amount of counter damage you'd be taking because it's a pierce attack, it would be
Yeah.
too much.
Right.
And I guess like the biggest issue from what I see, watching players like Stilovsky and see like the kind of tech that he comes up with it's that wave dashing and crouch canceling. It seems like just being able to crouch with that weapon is the number one problem with it. So
Yeah.
maybe what they could do, what I would like to see, just see all movesets have like some changes added to them, give crouching its own animation. But if they can't do that, if that's too expensive, then maybe at the very least they can change the crouch attack for Uggs specifically and just make that completely different. If they don't do that, what if they made it parryable? Do you think that would be enough to fix that weapon?
I
I
don't.
personally don't think that would be a fix.
Not me either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just because of how risky pairing is in general, I don't
Exactly.
think it would be really worth it
And
at all.
and in wave dashing, I mean, you could easily, play mind games with your opponent. They could just not parry it at all. I mean, it comes out really fast. But yeah, even then, I don't think it would be much of a help.
I see.
I think it's too inconsistent. It's just like
Yeah.
a good player will just bait it out of you and then punish your parry attempt a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I see. Inservins, how about you? What do you think they should do to address Uggs poke?
I would say probably not make it come out as fast. Honestly, instantly crouching and being able to, get that crouch poke in and, vortexing it. I would say probably, adding recovery, a longer recovery to it would be a nice, change to it. Just because of how dominant it's been for, since the first couple of months after, everyone was realizing how powerful power stance spears were and, cold infusion. Once everyone started using Gugs, yeah, I think with how dominant it's been, that's why I think that would be a nice change to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now, say if they were to go with my idea of changing the crouch attack completely, that would basically eliminate crouch poking. Do you think that has a place in the game, or should that whole attack, or like that whole tech of crouch poking and crouch canceling, should that be removed entirely from the game? What do you guys think? Snap, I'll start with you.
I don't think it should be removed from the game totally, because some players have relied on this tactic to make their whole playstyle based around. I think it just has. I think your idea was good. Maybe make it from rolling or.
Well, I'm speaking specifically like just crouch poking. So like it would basically keep the crouch animation the same. Do you think that like has a place in this game, or do you think it reduces the skill cap too much?
I really liked how Ladder did it, where they banned certain longer ones. It seemed the range made a huge difference. On the smaller ultra great swords, they can miss. You can roll out of the range of attack. I would like to see it continue, but I'd like to see something done as well. I'd like to see crouch attack stay in the game, but definitely needs a nerf or a slowdown. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Or a fix up.
Okay. And Rascals, does crouch poking have a place in Elden Ring PvP? Go.
I think it does. It's just not one of those things you can pick up and just completely dominate with it. You do need some type of skill and competence to even crouch poke and crouch cancel. I did like what Inservin said. It's one of the faster attacks in the game, and a small speed decrease in the attack and how fast it comes out, or maybe just not being able to poke cancel would help tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's pretty much all I got.
Mm-hmm. And servants, go.
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree with Ross. I think it's not something that you can just easily pick up with, how the tech is with it, wave dashing, all that. It definitely requires some sort of, I wouldn't say skill, but I would say it
Practice.
does involve a lot of, training with it, constantly using it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
getting really good movement with it, especially makes it extremely difficult trying to, mix up your crouches. But yeah, definitely would like to see some changes with it.
Okay. So I guess in that case, there's like two routes they can go. Change the crouch animation completely, which would basically remove crouch poking and the crouch tech, or they can increase the startup time so that way it's more telegraphed, it's easier to see, easier to avoid, and technically harder to spam because it's not the recovery that's being increased because that can be negated with recovery cancel. If they increase the startup, then that's harder to spam. It's easier to avoid, and maybe they can make it parryable. So that way, if it has a longer startup, then it's easier to parry. Maybe that could be the second route they can go. So there's two ways FromSoft can go about it, and that's how they can do it. So moving on, in servants, what's another thing you think they could add for patch 1.07?
Hmm. Um,
Again, like going back to the dueling meta and what's been problematic for the dueling meta.
I would say hopefully some sort of nerf to Flaming Strike, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing how powerful it's been, especially getting that 2-hit guarantee. They could do something like with glintstone pebble where you don't get that, guaranteed stun after landing the first hit with it would be nice. Just because of the roll catch, potential with it. It's extremely good on HTS. We've seen, Miasma, I think he went to a finals with HTS Flaming Strike. So hopefully they do something like Glintstone Pebble to it. That'd be definitely a nice change.
Mm-hmm. For me personally, I would just like to see the active frames be reduced so it's easier to roll on medium roll. Snapcaster, how about you?
I think similar about Flame Strike. It's one mistake, one wrong roll, and you're eating. I mean, a lot of damage. But I've never. I think it's a problem. But I think Storm Stomp, another Ash of War, is a big issue as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because Storm Stomp, it kind of takes away fundamentals of the game. You can use it through spam sometimes, as well as combo it into other things. Storm Stomp, it combos into some things that are ridiculous, as well as like totally halting aggression and slowing down certain playstyles.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to Flaming Strike, these two things I think are very problematic in the meta for sure.
Mm-hmm. Rascals, before we go on to Storm Stomp, give your thoughts on Flame Strike.
It's a Asher War that's very easy to spam. It totally negates aggression from the other player. It can be used to just completely zone your player out with no real punish of them doing. It's pretty much a guaranteed 2-hit combo, and it does insane amount of damage. It rewards passivity. It's just I would like to see a change. Maybe like you said, mentioning the glintstone ban. Maybe they can do something like that where it doesn't do automatic combo. You're stuck in it. So
Well, technically, it's not a guaranteed combo though, because you could roll out after the flame and avoid the follow up hit.
yeah,
Uh,
right.
right. So it's not as bad as Glintstone in that regard. I think what does make it really problematic is just how spammable the flame itself is. So like, how do you feel about that, Ras, and like being able to
Uh,
spam that flame?
just just being able to spam it, it's kind of annoying. But I think maybe increasing the FP is it's takes to use. would probably help out with that.
Mm-hmm. And Snap, what do you think about being able to spam that flame? Do you think that specifically should be adjusted, and how should it be adjusted?
So I think the main issue with Flaming Strike is actually the lingering hitbox.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when you spam a Flame Strike and somebody rolls back from the initial hit, if he doesn't roll properly, he can get hit by the follow-up of the Flame Strike, which will combo into the second hit. It seems like the lingering hitbox is what makes it combo. So the initial hit doesn't always combo, but if they roll backwards or something, or if they just stand there and if they get hit by the lingering flame, it seems to combo fully. And I think just removing the lingering hitbox might be a bit better because that way if you get hit by it, you actually got hit by it properly, not after 3 seconds that you thought it was gone.
Inservins, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely have to agree. That linger hitbox is really annoying after a while because you would think that I can aggress my opponent right after they've done that, but definitely can't. It's an extremely powerful defensive attack. So yeah, definitely would like to see the linger hitbox either removed or some sort of rework with Flaming Strike would be nice. So yeah.
So it's not really. So it's only the lingering hitbox and not the spam. Like how much you can use it, that's okay, and that can stay. That's basically what you guys are saying.
Maybe, I don't know.
Like say if they remove the lingering hitbox, so like it comes out and you can dodge it and that's it. If that's fixed, but you're still able to use it as much as you can now, where you can just do L2, 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 would it be okay then?
It'd be better, but I'm not too sure. Maybe more FP, but the thing is, you can just stack mind anyway. It's like
right. So like maybe have like increase the recovery of it and decrease the lingering frames. Like, would that be okay or would that be too much?
I think that would be okay.
I think that'd be okay. I think maybe a bit more recovery you could use. Yeah.
And Ras, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so decrease lingering frames, decrease the active frames, and increase the recovery. All right, and we're going to talk about Storm Stomp before moving on to the next topic. So Storm Stomp, like was mentioned before, it's something that kind of slows down the gameplay. It's very hard to aggress. You can't jump attack it. If you've tried to jump attack it, you get blown back. It's very easy to counter poise breaking hits with it because it has a lot of hyper armor on it. It reduces damage taken when you activate it. So Rascals, I'm going to start with you. How do you think Storm Stomp should be addressed?
Personally, I don't see much of an issue besides it completely counters out things when power stance straight swords, when you're relying on those jumps, you can stomp them out of the air. Personally, you can reaction roll it. It's pretty hard to do, but you can do it. But I think maybe reducing the range of the actual storm around you where you stomp, I think that might help reducing the range.
So, but by that, do you mean like the circle around you, or like
yes.
maybe? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, the circle around you, reducing it. Maybe take away the effect where you can stomp someone out of the air, because I mean, you're supposed to, the stomp's supposed to be like on the ground, and kind of like jumping in the air doesn't really affect how does that correlate with each other?
Right. I agree. And you know what? One of the issues I find about the lingering hitbox is that you try to roll past someone, get behind them, and then you still get caught. So, instead of addressing the active frames themselves, what if they change the hitbox so that it's only in front of the caster and the hitbox isn't behind them? Do you think that's an okay change? Like if you roll, there's no hitbox behind their body.
Do you know how the Hoarfrost stomp is? Are you talking about like that, like in front of the
user? Yeah, exactly. Okay. Like, do you think that's too much of a nerf, or would that be okay?
I'm not too sure, because I mean, I think it would kind of I think it would just kill it, to be honest.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Servants agree? Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Personally, I agree with what Rascals was saying about like the jumping aspect of it. It's a hitbox that's meant to be on the ground. I think if you were to add a solid counter to it, like jump attacks, I think that would be enough of a nerf for a Storm Stomp. Like, because I think if you were to remove the lingering frames from the Ash of War, it would basically become unviable and you'd never see it be used again in PvE or PvP. I think it does need the lingering frames to be good. So the real way to nerf it is to not change the Ash of War itself or like what makes it good, but just give it a viable counter. And I think making jump attacks a viable counter to it would be a good indirect nerf to the Ash of War. So like, how do you guys feel about that? Inservins, go.
Yeah, I definitely had to agree with you because constantly getting knocked down, anti-aired by it, really just defeats the purpose of what you would think what it meant for. Like if you're up close to someone, you want to let stomp on the ground. So I think the whole entire anti-air thing just does not make sense. And the hype armor, I noticed that's another really strong thing with it. And so I don't know if removing it would absolutely kill it, but it does make sense. But with how strong it is, and getting that hit off once you land it, it's extremely powerful. So.
And Rascals, removing the anti-air effect from Storm Stomp, yay or nay? And what are your thoughts on the hyper armor of Storm Stomp?
I would just say yay, just to get of how things would work. I mean, honestly, like if they did, everyone would just be jumping constantly if they're storm stomping. Hyper armor, yeah, kind of an issue, especially like on ladder, where you're reduced to max poise of 99, so you're pretty much getting stunned by any storm stomp. To get that hit off. So yeah, probably a nerf in the amount of poise damage it does, the hyper armor, and possibly taking away the anti-air.
Okay. And Snap, how about you?
I think the anti-air is a great idea. Actually, it would promote a counter. But if you had good reads, you can trade with a red attack. Let's say if you're using Storm Stomp, it would still have good uses. It would definitely be toned down. And also the poise, like Ras said on ladder, it does like something like over 100 something poise. So I think that can be toned down. That could be toned down as well.
So remove the anti-air effect, make jump attacks a viable counter towards Storm Stomp, but also reduce the poise just a little bit. What do you think is a good poise break for Storm Stomp, Snap?
I would say like 80, like something in the 80s, like 85, 83. Promote people to have like good enough poise to tank it, but not so much that it's not really viable or it's not doable.
So to break it, you'd need basically a colossal or like a halberd.
Yeah, kind of thing.
Okay. All right. I think that's fair. That would be a fair counter. I think the jump attack, removing the anti-air effect would be enough. But if they were to reduce the poise just a little bit to where you need like really large weapons to break it, I think that's fair. But then again, I feel like for weapons like heavy thrusting sword to be able to have a chance against great swords, they need Storm Stomp. So maybe leave the poise the same. I don't know. I think just the jump attacks would be enough of a nerf. But we'll leave that up to FromSoft, and since they're able to test that in house, hopefully Storm Stomp does get addressed in the next patch. So we're gonna move on. We're gonna talk about Elden Ring PvP ladder, what it's like to play in that, what it's like to play in the tournaments, and what you guys think they could improve. So, Snapcaster, I'm going to start with you. What is your overall experience like playing in ladder and the tournaments, and what are some things you think they could improve?
Overall, I've had a great experience playing ladder. I mean, last update, I was a bit upset because things like the Royal Remain set, things like mostly Royal Remain set and great. There's really powerful stuff going around. With the current rules, I'm pretty happy, and I've had a lot of fun playing them. The tournaments have been great, but like I said, there's a few exploitable things, but as ladder goes on, they're they're taking people's opinions. They're finding what people like, what they don't like, what's overpowered. I think they're going in the right direction. I think the creators, the people that work on ladder are doing a great job. The only thing I would say is current rules or the current ladder situation is, buffs like Black Flame Protection, 35% of absorption buffs could maybe, I don't know about ban, but something about that. They're very powerful right now in the current state, but that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm. Inservins, how about you? Overall
Yeah,
experience? Yeah, go ahead.
I definitely have had really good experience with everyone, and I would say in tournaments, I would like to see definitely sleep swords getting completely banned during
Oh
tournaments,
yeah.
especially paired since you can use them if you're in the same region as whoever you're going against. Um, Other than that, I would say right now with how the bans are going, I think it's a bit too much, especially what they did with ultras. So or
Oh yeah.
colossals. So I'd say probably right now try not to ban as many things as they have done in the recent rule set update, and hopefully maybe they might do something with HTS after the tourney. But other than that, I'd say it probably would be in a pretty good state.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Rascals, I know you're pretty vocal about your thoughts on ladder rules. What's your overall experience with ladder and tournaments like, and what are some things you think they can improve?
Honestly, I've enjoyed myself quite a bit when I did play ladder. It's really competitive. Meet some nice young fellas. You can have some great duels with them. Really bring out the competitive scene in Elden Ring. For the most part, the game was very unbalanced since release. So From Software is currently working on that, and the mod team, admin team, was currently taking that into effect in their own hands and banning the stuff that is just OP, broken, or just simply doesn't belong in a competitive scene, like Bloodhound Step, uh, you know, other things like nerfing the amount of poise you can have with Colossal Poke, Power Stance Straight Swords, Moon Veil, other limiting other Ashes of War from certain setups like Halberd. So they're going in the right direction. But I do think kind of what Servant was saying that they do kind of need to chill out a little bit on the bans. But as of right now, it seems okay. But I don't want to see one day pretty much where everything is just banned out completely. I think that's more of a
Mm-hmm.
FromSoft job that we just hope gets fixed in the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, from what I hear from LBU and the other mods on ERPVP, they want to make the game as player dependent as possible and less
Right.
setup dependent. So, like, someone who's not that good at the game, they can't just come in with a build that's just so overpowering that it carries them. They want your skill to be the thing that carries you in these ladder matches and tournament matches. One thing that I notice, I feel like they're struggling with right now is to find a way to balance UGs. So in the
Mm-hmm.
last update towards ladder rules, they banned a lot of colossals. They banned Greatsword initially, but then they just banned Watchdogs. They banned Zweihander. Basically, the only colossal swords that are left is Grafted, Ruins, Godslayer, and maybe I think Troll Sword.
Yes.
Their
Yeah.
philosophy was to reduce the amount of damage as possible and the range. But what I noticed in the last tournament, Uggs is still very dominant. It's so powerful, and what makes it powerful isn't really the damage or the range. It's the ability to crouch poke and crouch cancel. And I feel
Yes.
like since they can't touch that without banning the weapon class in general, like I feel like reducing what colossal swords you have available to you, it doesn't really do much. I feel like that weapon class, until crouch poke gets addressed, that weapon class just needs to be removed entirely. So, what do you guys think about that? Should they remove colossals completely from ladder, or does it belong? Should it belong there? In
See,
servants go.
I think.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm
Who's going
sorry.
first?
In servants go.
Okay.
Um, I would say right now, after seeing how good Grafted was in particular, I would say probably seeing how it would go with it being the whole entire class being banned. only temporarily. I wouldn't say permanently, just to see how everyone would react and see what people would actually use other than that. But I think with how the game currently is, I think it's way too powerful, even with the amount of bans, because there's so much variety and sort of colossals that you can use that I think still with the crouch poke being in the game still is a problem.
Mm-hmm. And Rascals, your thoughts?
Well, can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead.
Do you consider Ultra Greatsword, Colossal Swords, one of those builds that you would make not player dependent builds, but just overpowered builds? Do you consider it as one of those?
Good question. It would it's a player dependent. Like you mentioned before, you still have to practice crouch canceling and wave dashing to really make it effective. So it
Right.
does take skill.
Yes.
But
Okay.
I feel like in these in the competitive setting and in the tournament setting where everyone, does have skill and these are all like competitive players, in that setting it's just too good. It's too
Right.
good even with the current nerfs. I feel like just crouch poking existing, it's too good. So I feel like maybe they should just remove the weapon class entirely. But
Right.
that's why I'm asking you guys, since you guys play
Okay.
ladder. Go ahead.
Oh yes. Removing it. I'm not sure too much about removing it completely, but it does dominate, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I felt some type of way towards the no skill ban. Because honestly, like that was the reason why I used the Great Shield Moonveil build to begin with, was to just deal with Uggs. Because there are certain things that like Trina's, for example, um, completely just like destroys Great Shield. There's Power Stance Straight Swords in general are pretty strong against Great Shield. But yeah, honestly, that was kind of one of the reasons why I was just kind of in disagreement with the Great Shield ban, because it's so good against fighting Uggs. You can't get Vortex as easy because it's really easy to Vortex. But I do see the issue sometimes with Great Shield when you're not fighting an Uggs, where it just completely shuts down all builds. But yeah, I thought that Great Shield was a good counter. So now with that pretty much gone with the no skill ban, uh, I guess it's just one of those things that we'd have to see into effect to see how things go out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And Snapcaster, your thoughts?
So maybe it's a bit different than everyone, but I think they're very strong. They're still like grafted is definitely an extremely powerful weapon, but I don't know if it's completely broken still. I mean, Watchdogs, the ability to not have an Ash of grafted can't have an Ash of War, which somewhat balances it. Trolls can have Ash of War, but the damage is lower. I guess you can use Warcry, but like in my experience, if you're focused enough, you can get around it. The range significantly makes it less broken, but it's still probably one of the best setups in the ladder. I don't know if I would completely remove it though. I think it has a place in the meta.
Okay. So then overall, you agree with the current ladder rules then, with the current
I
nerfs?
think it's okay. I think if anything, grafted would be the only issue because of huge damage and counters and stuff. But I actually don't think it's. I think it's actually quite like it's somewhat okay right now in ladder.
Okay. All right, fair enough. And then another thing that I feel ladder is struggling with is Royal Remains. So that is something that did get addressed in the last update.
Yeah.
Right now you can only wear a single piece of Royal Remains. But what I noticed when hosting a fight club with End of the Lion, just one piece, if you're able to be passive, you can get back a lot of health. Like I saw a guy get dropped down to basically one hit, less than 50 health, and then within the span of like a minute or so, he was able to get back a third of his health and turn that match from a guaranteed loss to a draw. So I feel like in a setting where great shields are allowed to exist and 100% physical block shields are allowed to exist, I wonder if even a single piece of Royal Remains is too much, and maybe that armor should be banned completely. So Snap, I'm gonna start with you. What do you think they should do about Royal Remains?
Honestly, I'm in my personal opinion, there should be no Royal Remains. It's just regen is one of those regen is just one of those things that is just in competitive PvP it can be abused so easily. You can in games like this game or Dark Souls 3, you can just run away and dodge all the moves, play passive, run around, and slowly turn the game around when you have no business winning that game. Royal Remains is a problem. I think the Blessed Dew Talisman is probably as far as it should go, in my opinion.
Okay. So you believe Royal Remains should be removed, but regen as a whole has a place in competitive.
Only Blessed, like maybe just the ring. I don't think regen has any place besides that.
Okay.
Like
Rascals.
very minimal regen.
Okay. And Rascals, your thoughts on Royal Remains?
Yeah, I'm completely for banning Royal Remains completely. I think it, like Snap says, it doesn't have a place in the game. Especially you throw on the red feathered talisman with the blue feathered. You're gonna negate all the damage you take by a significant amount. You can just run around, slowly restore HP, and end up either winning or tying the match that you should have lost.
Okay. And inservins?
Yeah, I would have to agree with everyone. I think it deserves to be completely banned, especially paired with hidden blessed dew talisman, and you could put red feather, blue feather, and a dragon crest, and have a bunch of defense boost. It just really if you are that low and being able to get that much regen off and making that sort of comeback, especially if the other opponent has like a huge health, I can't talk. Compared to you, I think it definitely deserves to be completely banned. I think just one regen, the ring, should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this goes into like a bigger conversation about regen in competitive in general. So we or ERPVP wants to promote as much build diversity as possible. And, they want regen builds to be a thing. But the problem I see is in a rule set that has no timer at all, there's no time limit. Shields are allowed. 100% physical block is allowed. Damage reducing talismans is allowed. I feel like paired with all those things, just any regen in general becomes problematic because you can wait out the clock for as long as you want and get your health back. So I feel like because of that, like even Blessed Dew Talisman and any regen, like it shouldn't be allowed. Now I guess what happens is when you do that, you do ban certain weapons like a blasphemous blade, like what's that weapon? Great Stars. That also has some regen on hit. But the thing with those weapons, you have to be aggressive. You have to be on the offense to get that regen. I think offensive regen is okay because you have to put yourself in danger to get that regen. There's like a risk versus reward. Whereas passive defensive regen, you just have to hold up your shield and just wait until you get your health back. I think that needs to be removed completely. But it seems like you guys disagree with me. But bringing all that stuff up about the lack of a time limit, the shields, and the damage increasing talismans, do you think regen should be in the ladder rules? So Snapcaster, I'm going to go back to you. What do you think?
If I had to choose yes or no for regen, I would say no. I don't like the mechanic. I think I like that, like you said. I like the idea of there's a weapon called a talisman called Godskin's Swaddling Cloth. What it does is it heals you on successive attacks. So let's say you have a curved sword and you do 4 hits or something, you'll gain a bit of life back, and that's a cool mechanic. Like it's not completely broken. You have to actually, like you said, invest and take a risk in order to get your life back. With passive regen, I really don't like it. I think even if Blessed Dew alone, maybe because fan daggers, right? At low life, if someone's spamming fan daggers, it helps a bit to maybe get one more hit off. But anything more than that, I don't think it should be included.
And Rascals, passive regen, does it have a place or no?
I'm fine with the complete Royal Remains ban. I don't think Blessed Dew is enough just to completely outban it because it's not. What is it, like 2 HP per second, or if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, I think something like that.
I don't think it's. I don't think like you said, you can just like fan dagger it. Honestly, I don't think it's that much of an issue. Blessed Dew by itself, but paired with just one piece of Royal Remains, with if you're going like cockroach mode is what they call it on low health with the So I think that might become an issue. So just taking the Royal Remains completely out would probably balance that out.
Okay, but I also mentioned like if since there's no time limit and 100 physical damage resistant shields are allowed, does that make passive regen too good when you have shields and you have no time limit?
Well, there's things like status, hammer talisman. If we're talking shields, you could have a weapon that does chip damage, like fire or magic. So not everything has to be physical.
Okay, so status effects is a counter to passive regen. That's fair. That's a good response. Inservins, how about you? Should passive regen exist in competitive, or do you think like if the removal remains, it's fine?
I would say completely removing it would be fine. Just since, like what you were talking about, there is no time limit. You can stall the matchup, as long as you want, and paired with like the other rings, you can have like red tearstone or red feather, blue feather. I think that's more than enough in terms of being able to outlive live the longest you can during a fight. So I would say completely removing regen would be fine for me.
Okay. Okay. So that's for removing passive regen entirely. I agree. Inservins agree. Snap agrees. Rascal says because of the existence of status effects and status effects being a counter to regen, he believes it should not be banned. And I totally agree with what Rascals is saying. Moving on, we're gonna close to the end, so we're gonna talk about some of your previous matches in the past and just get an insight into like what happened with those. So we're gonna start with Inservins versus Rascals in the last American Den tournament. So this was a very exciting match for me to watch and commentate over. Let's see, in the semifinal match, Inservins, I believe he fought Rascals, and Rascals got eliminated. And then Rascals came back. He, or, I'm trying to look
the
at
other way around.
It was the other way around. I was the winner.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going. I'm like bringing up the challenge right now. So I'm looking at the brackets. Let's see what happens. Rascals. Oh yeah. So finals. Rascals and Servants. Rascals beat Inservins, and then. Oh wait, wasn't it? I'm sorry. I'm like so backwards right now. There was a grand finals match, correct?
Yes.
There was, yeah.
Oh,
I
there
won
it is.
the finals, and then Inservin won the finals reset, and then I won the grand finals.
Okay, yeah, I see it now. Yeah, right. So it was Rascals versus Inservins. Rascals beat Inservins 3-0. Then we got to the grand finals. Inservins beat Rascals 3-0, and then in the final match, it went 2 to Inservins, 3 to Rascals. So from what I remember, Rascals, he pretty much stuck to his Moonveil Great Shield build, and that helped him win against Inservin's dual coded build in the final match. And then in grand finals, the first one, Inservin's, he managed to make a comeback. Rascals chose to stick with his Moonveil build, and then when he started losing in the final match, he pulled out it was what, frost status effect. He pulled that out, and that pretty much turned the tides completely for him. And it seemed like Inservins didn't know what to do against that. So starting with Inservins, like what was your mindset in that final tournament match, and what happened when Rascals brought out that frost weapon?
Honestly, I really regret still sticking to the sleep swords. I think whenever I was up 2-0 in that set, I think if I switched to probably either like HTS or I think either probably Uggs might have helped, but I think still trying to stick to that setup that I was using was probably one of the main things that brought me down. Because I noticed whenever I was trying to put any sort of aggression, he can just offstock me, get that frost proc, and his Moonveil does 200 to 300 more damage. So I think if I switch after losing once to him, I think if I switched up, my entire setup, I think it would have probably helped me, secure the win. But overall, I think I was really surprised by how far I reached because originally I thought I'd probably lose, maybe like second round, third round in. So I'm just surprised I was able to get the reset in and just GG's to everyone during that tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you actually fought against Sir Leaky Bum in the fight before Rascals. How did that go, and what were your thoughts on that matchup?
Uh, Honestly, he was using I think right before the tournament, he was using a Moonveil Beastal Sling build. And I think if he would have stuck to that originally instead of Halberd Offstock, I honestly could have seen him beating me because right before we were, dueling a bit before the tournament, and he was actually, beating me quite often with that setup. So I think if he stuck to the, original setup he was using before the tournament, I definitely could have seen, been knocked down way earlier and maybe would have made a comeback to finals, but definitely I got I was using HTS Great Shield, I think. So I definitely got lucky with that. So
Mm-hmm. And Rascals, coming to you and your match against Inservins, you were having trouble struggling against his status effects, and in the end, you decided to pull out your own status effects, so that way that would take some of the pressure off of you, force him to take a step back to get a bolus on his status effect. Like, what was your mindset going through that entire matchup?
Okay, so I believe the first match me and Servant had, I believe he was using HTS Great Shield with Flame Strike. I was pretty comfortable fighting that build. I fought it before, so I was pretty comfortable fighting it with Great Shield. I believe that match went 3-0. And then the next one, he did pull out the Trinas, and it was just from there. It was just complete mind games. Like I was getting outplayed because the way I was playing with the Great Shield, I was just pretty much soaking up all the status he was throwing at me. And one slip, I could just be L1 repeatedly, and it was just complete mind games. I was being stubborn. I didn't want to switch off my Great Shield. I should have switched to the off stock with the cold stock much sooner, but I
Mm-hmm.
was trying to I was trying to make it work. Didn't happen. So right at the end, I just went for the clutch and stayed calm. Kept my nerves pretty calm. Didn't want to panic or anything, and I just relied on it to get the frost proc because, like Insurgent was saying, like my moon veil was doing maybe like 5 to 600 because I had such low int because of my great show investment. I was running like 33 endurance and like 36 strength, so I didn't have much intelligence. So my moon veil was hitting quite weak to begin with, but once you're frosted, I was doing probably like 900 damage, so it helped out quite a bit. I was pressuring him with the off stock, didn't let him get close because he was worried about the getting frosted. So it just really worked out. I kind of regret not switching into it sooner, but in the end, it was a very good match.
Mm-hmm.
It was mostly mind games and playing like tricking each other to see what works against each other and what doesn't.
What inspired you to pull out the frost?
Uh, before I made the Moonveil Great Shield build, I used to use Moonveil off stock, so I had a lot of experience with it beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just, I knew the Great Shield wasn't working, so I knew if I used it for the last round that I would have lost. So I just went with my gut and went with what I was best with, and it worked out.
Like, did you think that using status on him would take some of the status pressure off of you?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Because that's pretty much what happened. Like, now that he has to worry about status being applied to him, he couldn't focus on aggression and he had to take a step back to put a bolus on.
Right.
So that really turned things around for
Now
you.
that was kind of the goal, to keep him off of me as much as I can, so I don't get slept. So forcing that cold status on him, he would kind of play a bit more passive, where I could kind of stay from a range and use my Moonveil crouch canceling to
Hmm.
high effect with him being not up and close personal with me.
Yeah, and you know what? For what it is, like that last match went the full 5 rounds, and as a tournament host, that's what I like to see. I like to see a match that go the entire way and not just be a 3-0 wash. So easily one of the best tournaments in recent memory, and just seeing the mind games being applied and seeing the setup change actually make a difference. That was great to see. Moving on, Snapcaster, your match against Luber was one of the most memorable matches to me personally because Luber is a machine. That man is a Terminator. He did not lose a single round in that entire tournament. Unbelievable. Didn't lose a single round in that entire tournament. But you, my friend, you came the closest to beating him. And I got it was basically his regen build that saved him, his shield and his regen. And like in that match, what frustrated me watching you was you tried to finish him off with Ice Stomp, Hoarfrost, but you weren't really being tactical with it. You didn't try to push him into a corner so that he had nowhere to go. You just kind of threw it out from the center haphazardly. And I thought if you were to push him into a corner where he has nowhere to run to the side and he has to take the damage, if you were to do that, he would have lost. So like, what was your mindset in that fight, and like what happened, in your opinion?
Okay, so the first round he totally destroyed me. He came in with his Ultra Great Sword and Vortex Speed, but the second round, during that moment you're talking about, when I saw the regen going up, when I saw the amount of sheer regen he was getting at low life, I didn't panic, but I went into like hyper mode. Like I felt like I had to do something, or else all the advantage I had gotten would go away. So it kind of put me maybe in a panic mode more than I should have been. And I started spamming Hoarfrost Stomp. Also, with the full Royal Remains and that shield, I forget the shield name is Twin Kite Shield, I believe. I did hit him a good. I remember the announcer was saying one more hit, but 5 hits later, Buddy's still running around with regen. So it's like that defense buff plus the regen. I felt at the end I didn't give up, but I panicked because I didn't know how to deal with it. I hadn't seen that tactic before until then.
It kind of takes us back to the conversation about regen and shields.
Yeah.
But focusing on that match, your Hoarfrost Stomp, so basically you just threw it out because you panicked. You didn't think to push him into a corner with it?
I panicked. I tried to get him around, to get hit by just one more time or get a frost proc. I tried to do some red attacks, but with Great Shield and regen and the damage negation, Luber really played. I mean, also Luber is amazing. He played well. He dodged everything. I was throwing red attacks. I was throwing neutral and Hoarfrost ice spears. But in the end, I guess I couldn't do it. I couldn't court him enough. He wasn't panicking. He was rolling well.
Yeah, it's disappointing to me that we're not seeing Luber play in these future Den tournaments. I would like to see him play again, but I feel like, at least to him, he feels like, I guess he's bored of the game, or he feels like no one could beat him. So I would like to see him play again, and maybe we can have him on the podcast eventually. Ras, since you fought him, what are your thoughts on Luber?
Like you said, Luber is a machine. He's very good. He's very good at reacting. He's very goodish at just playing mind games, and he uses Uggs. Last time I fought him in tournament, I believe he was using Uggs and Great Shield, and I was using Moonveil off stock, and that was just something he completely shut down. He just shut me down completely. I was just able to get like a few Moonveils off, and then I was just stuck in that vortex. He's very good at vortexing people. Once you're in it, it's very hard to get out. He's very hard to punish. He's very hard to roll catch. I'm hoping to see him in future tournaments, and maybe making a return back to ladder would be great.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys are itching to fight him again. Inservins, I don't know if you fought him before. What are your thoughts on Luber?
Did fight him. I think it was a month or two. I think it was a month ago. He posted a ladder match, and I accepted it. And we were at Forsaken Depths. I think it was probably the closest match, or closest set he's ever had. It went 2-3 in his favor. And oh my goodness, his aggression is crazy. He's really good at swapping too. I noticed he can swap it to a completely different setup in feels like seconds because of how fast he is with the menus. And I think at the time he was using a poison Zwei with Great Shield and had no skill with Beast Roar. So anytime I tried to blouse, it would easily counter it with a Beast Roar, and it was just extremely hard to put any aggression because I think at the time I was using HTS. So it was just an extremely difficult and a long set. I think it lasted for like 20 to 15 minutes overall throughout the entire set. So that's whenever we had full Royal Remain. So, me and him swapped that whenever we are near death, and it would just, who can make a mistake, before the other person could. So it was definitely a bunch of mind games that went into it, and hopefully he does make a return because he's an extremely dominant player, and it's always a pleasure to fight him. So it would be nice to see him come back.
Yeah, I can't remember. He also did he played in Brenda's tournament, the $1,000 tournament where he fought against I believe he fought against G9, and he also fought against one lad. I can't remember who took him out because he did end up in the losers bracket. I don't have the challenge with me. Does anyone remember who took him out?
It was Lad.
Harser took him out too, right?
Harser was in the tournament. It wasn't Lad. Lad fought him in the grand finals, and Lad lost.
It was Harser. He did.
What
it was
Harser?
Gug's mirror.
Yeah, Harser beat him in Gug's mirror, if I believe.
I see.
If I remember correctly.
I see. So yeah, it's like Gugs is Luber's main weapon, and for good reason because it's just so dominant in the meta. And it took like another Gugs main to take him out. But then once he came back in ladder, I think one lad he tried everything. One lad was just switching from different sets, from Great Shield Dagger to Gugs, and like just nothing worked on the guy. Like that dude really is something else. So I agree with what you guys said. I hope he returns. Would love to see him compete again because I think the players, everyone deserves a chance to fight him again and have a chance to beat him. Like how selfish of Luber to just come in, win, don't say anything, and just leave like a Giga Chat. Like, nah, sir, you come back here. You give these guys a chance to beat you. And speaking of Lad, a Snapcaster in the warm-up tournament, you fought against Lad in the final match, and it was just a sight to behold. Seeing Rivers of Blood versus Moonveil, the red versus blue, the Reddit meme. We've talked to Lad and his thoughts on that final match in that final interview, but we didn't get to hear your thoughts. What were your thoughts on that fight overall?
Honestly, man, that was like my favorite moment of Elden Ring so far. That was just so fun. Like you said, the chat, the Reddit, like it was so stereotypical but great. He played amazing, and it all came down to, on my part, I feel like I made a big mistake at the end, but I think the match ended 3-2 or something in his favor. Mm-hmm. I remember I got beaten at first really fast when I was Halberd. Then I started playing more carefully and trying to space the Storm Stomp with the Rivers of Blood, and I think I caught up. And the last round, I remember using. It was going down to the wire. I still had my tier. I thought I was going to win the tournament, and I went for a Star Shower to finish him off after swapping to the Sorcery Ring for more damage, and he just whipped out a Moonveil weapon out of 2, and I was totally surprised. I knew he would do it, but I didn't. I thought I could get the Star Shower off, and that just totally turned the tide.
Yeah.
But honestly, that was such a great fight. It was such a good time. One lad's a great player. I don't know if he plays anymore, but I definitely enjoyed fighting him at the time.
Yeah, unfortunately, he did stop playing because he kind of
he fell
out of love with the game. He didn't like the way the game wasn't getting balanced enough, and maybe the last patch gave him some hope, and maybe with the current rule changes, maybe he'll be inspired to come back to ladder. I hope he does because he's just another player like Luber who I think people deserve a chance to fight him and beat him. And he's just a good player. For him to stop playing so early, I feel is just a waste. In that match, you had your tiers, and it seemed like you were gonna win. But with one hit of Moonveil, it overkilled your tiers. That's what I remember. He overkilled it. Went right through your tiers, caught you on the Star Shower. But yeah, that was just a very solid match for both of you, and it could have went either way. It was just one of my favorite matches of all time. Unfortunately, that match didn't get uploaded to YouTube. I believe Brenna does have the VOD for it, and he just has to transfer that to Enda. So hopefully one day we can get that tournament on YouTube so everyone can watch it.
I I have what's it called? I have the last 2 rounds on my YouTube channel. Me versus Lad, the last 2 rounds. So like when it was I won one and he won one. I put it like that, not to take sides. And I put in my description that he won the tournament. But if anyone wanted to see that, you can check it out on my channel too.
That's awesome. So it is at least a part of it is recorded somewhere. And hopefully we Enda and Brenna, they can get that VOD up on YouTube soon because people deserve to watch that tournament. Like just that tournament in general, hosting it and making the intros for it, just one of the best times I've ever had hosting tournaments. I loved it, and it was like my debut as a commentator to come back to Souls PvP, come back to Souls tournaments, and just like do that again. So easily just one of the most memorable moments in my Souls career. Before we end the stream, we're going to answer 2 questions from our question submission channel in the Knights Duelist Corner Discord. If you guys don't know, I opened up a new Discord server called Knights Duelist Corner. You can see the link to it in the description down below. And over there, I'm hosting my own custom Elden Ring tournaments. That is a alternative to the competitive rule set. So about 2 weeks ago, we hosted a fist weapons only tournament. Next month in September, we're going to be hosting a great weapons only tournament, and I'm going to continue just hosting custom tournaments for as long as I can, just to give the Souls community something to do in between all the competitive events from ER PvP, and in that server, you can also submit questions for the Roundtable podcast so me and my guests could answer. So going on to the questions, we have 2. Hura the Blessed asks, is doing a podcast fun? My answer, yes. It is very, very fun to do. Thank you, Hura. And then I have one more question, and this is directly for Rascals. Winterbringer asks, Rascals, do you still need to do large glintstone scraps?
I'm always willing to have those dupe and drop to me. Those are the type those are consumable that I use quite often. I typically use them in like tournament settings because I just set up for the roll catches with the moon veil. They're pretty useful. But man, if you're willing to drop me some scraps, I'll gladly take it.
All right, and well, there's your answer, Winter. So that closes off our question section for the podcast. I'm gonna close us off with one more question, and that is, what advice do you have for new players that want to get into the ladder? So, Ras, we'll start with you.
So you're talking about getting into ladder, right?
Yeah, just if you're playing ladder for the first time and you want to get into the top 20 so you can play in the tournaments, what is your advice starting out?
My advice is, start off, do a few matches, and then once you get comfortable playing and, start challenging some of the top players on ladder, it's a really good way to improve because, you're fighting good players and you're going to be, at first, you might struggle a little bit, you might not, but overall, fighting a good player is going to make you try to make less mistakes, and you're going to see how a better player moves with their spacing and roll catching, and you're just going to be able to adapt overall. And fighting a player that's not really that great is you might not see that as much improvement as you were fighting a top player on ladder. So just stay consistent. Elden Ring PvP is worth playing. Give it a shot. Just have fun with it. Make sure you enjoy it, and that's what really matters.
Great answer. Snapcaster, how about you?
For a new player, I think it's really important to take suggestions from people who, like Vasco said, playing people who are very good or just on top of the ladder. Play against people that are better than you. See what they're doing, how they're fighting, how they're adapting to your setups. Also, with that suggestions or different comments, constructive criticism, don't take it too harshly. You'll get there too. Everyone starts somewhere. It's just pretty much like Rascal said. Also have fun, and at the same time, try and find your special setup you do well with. And I think, like I said, it's important to ask questions as well. There's a lot of info in Elden Ring. There's a lot of builds and strategies and different weapons. There's a lot of information that's out there. So ask questions and practice, and then that's about it. That'll really help.
Okay. And inservins.
Say I personally did this like during like DS3, but I was usually rewatching a bunch of old tournaments, like some of the recent ones, and seeing what some of the top players were using, the different setups, like currently HTS and coded. I would say definitely take note of what people are doing, like especially with spacing, like different kind of movements, switching up how you play, and definitely what Snap said, taking criticism, and don't take it too harshly because you're definitely not going to see success. The moment that you start playing the ladder, definitely takes a lot of grinding, being consistent, you know, taking suggestions, and definitely start as long as you're steady, trying to keep up with what the ladder is constantly changing and evolving. Try not to stick to one setup constantly. Switch it up, and you'll definitely see results.
Excellent advice. I don't play on ladder too much. I kind of stopped playing it earlier on just because I've been so busy doing the den tournaments and just being busy with life. But I agree with all your advice, especially on experimentation. You don't want to just stick to one build because you like it. It's just the nature of competitive environments. You got to play what's competitive, so you got to have that high poise, and you got to be ready to like switch up your build. If you're getting hit with status effects, maybe try applying status effects to your opponent. That's what Rast did against Inservins. Get proficient with ultra great swords. Get proficient with heavy thrusting swords. Just be proficient in every type of playstyle, so that way you always have an answer to somebody. You can't really stick to one gimmick. That plus also playing against good players. Playing against randoms at mag, that's not enough because the skill gap varies greatly. If you want to get good, you got to play with the best. Don't be afraid to take a deep dive into the competitive setting and play against those really good players up front, because playing against them, if you prioritize playing against them, you will get better a lot quicker because you'll see what works and what doesn't. Um, and that's pretty much it. I would like to thank my guests for coming on to the show. Once again, it was an honor, and thank you so much to each and every one of you for joining. Thank you, Inservins. Thank you, Snapcaster. And thank you, Rascals, for coming on.
No problem.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And thank you to my audience for watching. Thank you for listening listening to the entire podcast. I know these shows can go on for a very long time, so if you did stick around for the entire 2-hour show, I want you to know that I love you and I'm very grateful to have you as a viewer. If you'd like to support the show, just hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell notification so you can see all my uploads as they come on. I upload this podcast, and I also upload tournaments. I upload build videos, the occasional funny video. And again, hit that like button so that this video shows up in the algorithm more. We get the word out, and the main goal of this show is to get FromSoft to notice it so they can take our advice and use it to improve the game further. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. One more thing, Roundtable Podcast is available on YouTube and it's available on Spotify. So if you'd like to listen to the podcast in the background, you can do that. You can do that on your PlayStation. You can do that on your phone while you're jogging or if you're at the gym. If you want to listen to a bunch of sweaty nerds talk about Elden Ring, now you can do that on Spotify. So if just look up Roundtable Podcast on Spotify, you'll find it really easy. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great one. Take care.